glad you're watching the Weekend Express. Moving on to our interview segment now, still keeping with matters Kericho and Malindi senatorial by-elections. And like I promised, we would be having expert analysis right here in studio. And joining us now is political commentator Dismas Mukua. Yeah. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us in studio. So we'll be speaking to Dismas about that Kericho by-election and the Malindi by-elections. Of course, what's at stake? And
it's a big stakes game.
Yeah, definitely a big stakes game. Yeah. But last night, the candidates for the senatorial by-election in Kericho had a debate in a last-minute rush to convince voters in Kericho to vote for them. Joining us in the studio to talk more about this is political commentator Dismas Mukua. We'll be speaking in detail about the Kericho and Malindi senatorial by-elections, but let's just get your take first of all. How would you rate the capacity of the candidates in the senatorial debate in Kericho in answering the questions raised by the citizens?
Well, you know, without being politically correct, Michelle, the performance is underwhelming. I mean, and I say this with humility and respect. For instance, the question posed by Kitili about the role of a senator in Kenya. None of those three candidates really knows what they're going to be doing at the Senate. And I doubt whether the missing candidates would actually know what they're doing, they'll be doing at the Senate as well. So for me, I think really the tragedy we have in Kenya is people are supposed to run for elective offices. For some reason, they decided to go and take cover behind a bush and leave mediocrity to come to the top. Because if the people of Kericho are going to elect somebody to the Senate, who clearly does not understand the role of the Senate. You see, they're talking about issues that are supposed to be presided over by the national government. And the question posed about how, as a senator, they may assist in revamping the tea sector, all of them are tiptoeing around the issue. Nobody really understands. Probably, as a nation, we shouldn't be surprised that our age mates or our peers like South Korea and Singapore are miles ahead because we don't have leadership that is able to join the dots. Out of all those three candidates, none is able to see the four corners in a room. All of them are tiptoeing around issues. Probably that's the reason why when they go to the Senate, their priority is to get a car loan and maybe get a mortgage and start accumulating wealth. There is lack of intellectual leadership. From what I have seen, they don't have any intellectual curiosity. Like, for instance, when you're talking about the tea situation, and one would expect anybody who stays in Kericho to have a very deep understanding of tea.
Yeah, of tea.
I mean, I would have expected them to say that which are the other tea producing countries? How have they managed their space to ensure that the farmer gets the high return on tea?
Instead, they have the same song everybody sings. When you elect me, I promise you that I will do this and this.
Yeah, but we see today the voter, probably a voter in Kericho wants to be told that when I become senator, I'll hit the ground running. That am I going to work with the national government? Am I going to work with the county government to ensure that we reduce the inputs, the cost of inputs to the tea sector, so that we get a higher return? And you know, the tea sector in Kenya, just like coffee, has been strangled by special cartels. So I expected these candidates to talk about how they're going to work with the national government and the county governments to make sure that these middlemen, the cartels, are, you know, kicked out of the entire chain. But you see what they're doing? They're just tiptoeing around the issues. And this is not only confined to Kericho. It's probably countrywide. Save for a few senators like, say, Professor Lonyangopuo, Senator Wetangula, Boni Kalwale. Majority of them really are just wallowing in ignorance. And it's unfortunate that we are on autopilot today.
Right. But you see, even we had one of the residents there ask a question with regard to the devolution of funds to the county governments. That is not the role of the senator. So it seems that the residents themselves and the voters in Kenya don't understand what their leaders should be bringing to the table.
You know, the tragedy is when we were passing this constitution some time ago, majority of us said that if, say, Mr. Raila Odinga or Mr. William Ruto or Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, if they've gone through the constitution and they're okay with this, then we'll follow whatever they tell us. That's the tragedy. Most of us, up to 90%, have not been able to socialize with the Kenyan constitution. So we do not even know the difference between the Senate and the National Assembly. Majority of us do not even know that all members of the National Assembly and the Senate are members of Parliament. So we keep on confusing.
Yes.
So really, it's it's ignorance galore in Kenya, and really, it's a tragedy today, with you know, the digital world that we are in, that voters do not understand the role of a senator and a member of the National Assembly. But now it's a disaster when people who are running for that office do not understand the job description.
Themselves, absolutely. Now, JAP candidate Aaron Cheriot did not show up for that particular debate, did not honor the call to show up for the debate. Do you think this could be part of the rivalry that's going on between the Jubilee Alliance Party and KANU?
Well, in a normal democratic setting, when you're running for a particular office, you're supposed to use this opportunity to come and market yourself, to come and show to the voter that indeed I've got the infrastructure necessary for me, I mean, for you to elect me to the Senate. But the fact that he decided to duck would be a pointer to the fact that he's in the same boat. He's in the same category. He does not understand the issues. So he feared that if he faces this kind of a panel, he'll live with a very bad egg on his face. But again, it's important for us to realize that the other two guys there, that was, apart from Mr. Paul Sang, the other two guys, they're part of the escort because they don't stand a chance of
well, it's a two-horse race,
yeah,
definitely.
And the people who are running for this seat, in fact, contrary to popular belief, it's not Mr. Aaron Cheriot and Mr. Paul Sang. This is between Mr. Gideon Moi and the DP William Ruto. So these two gentlemen, they're just pawns. You even notice that during the campaigns, the person who gets a lot of airtime, the person who is doing the actual campaign is Governor Isaac Ruto and Mr. Gideon Moi for Paul Sang. And then the DP Ruto, Murkomen, Kidure Kindike, they're the ones who are doing the campaigns for Mr. Cheriot. So I'll not be surprised today that if you go to the Nairobi streets and ask folks, do you know that there is a by-election in Kericho? They'll say yes. But do you know the candidates who are running? Probably they'll say no. But do you know who's been campaigning? They'll say, of course, yes. We've seen Governor Ruto talking about Kutenga. We've seen about the DP Ruto talking about Abunuasi and Vitendawili. And this is really a race between the DP Ruto and Governor Ruto. And looking at the probabilities, in the unlikely event that Mr. Paul Sang wins, then the DP Ruto will be bleeding, he'll be wounded, and they may need to go back to the drawing table and come up with a new strategy. Because the way it happens in Rift Valley politics, right now people are testing waters. And in the event that the DP Ruto's candidate wins, that's Mr. Cheriot, then everybody wants to run for a seat, be it an MCA, MP, or governor. They'll know that if you do not work with DP Ruto, you are a chapter in history books. Right. So he's going to instill the fear of the Lord in the entire Rift Valley, the former Rift Valley province. But in the event that Mr. Sang wins, then it becomes an entirely different ballgame. Because all of a sudden, Gideon Moi and Ruto, now Governor Ruto, will become the new kingpins. And anybody who is running for office, they'll say, okay, we've seen what has happened to Cheriot. We have to toe the line of Mr. Moi and Mr. Governor Ruto. And so this is going to be very important. And every Kenyan is watching it. And if you want to draw parallels, ask yourself, if this by-election was taking place, say, in Murang'a or Nyeri, would President Kenyatta make up to 9 trips going to Nyeri to campaign?